Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Queer Network. This is Queer Talk Podcast. That's what we're calling it for now. I don't know.
Is it a podcast?
Yeah, it's a podcast. It's going to be released on Pod.
But is a
It's
podcast?
both.
But we're seeing it. People are seeing
I
us.
know, but people record their podcasts now.
You do?
Yeah. This is it. You're keep this in the video. This needs to be in the edit. This is it. This is us. You and me. This is literally us. I say something and you're like, is that really how it is now? And I'm like, yes, that is how it is. And you're like, okay, cool. So do not edit this up.
And you know what? Next week we might call it something else.
Exactly. But we love, we were thinking about what we call this and we're like, it's queer talk. It's like, there's nothing more queer about it. It's the queer talk and it's a podcast. So
You didn't have to
welcome to the Queer
yeah,
Talk podcast.
yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and
I'm,
it's
I'm
our
not sure about
thing.
I'm not sure about the podcast. I think it's just queer talk. But if you want to call it podcast,
Yeah, I mean it's sort of I guess it's sort of redundant because it is posted as a podcast, so you don't need to say it's a podcast. It is what it is.
the in thing podcast. So
Exactly.
we're just
So we're just trying to be current.
we're just talking queer.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, here we are. Okay, enjoy this episode.
Yeah. We'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
You're never not where you are. And so you can accept where you are, then you can actually start from there instead of pretending like you're 10 steps ahead. And then it's even more depressing when you're like, didn't follow through, or it got harder, or, somebody said something or triggered you. And then you're like, doing nothing for 2 days. Like,
And that's huge. What you just said is huge because people need to be told, or to be not told, but that it's okay to start where you are. It's okay. My mom, she's 95 years old. She gets depressed sometimes, and sometimes
yeah,
it's like a couple of days. And I say to her, and she needs to hear, I said, Mom, it's okay. It's
yeah,
okay for you to feel that way. The
yeah,
key is just don't be in there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or
yes.
right. But allow yourself to feel depressed. Allow yourself to be sad because
Hmm.
and I know this with my mom, that in a couple of days she's going to be fine. So
Yeah,
people need to know that yeah, it's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to reach out and go on Grinder and
yeah,
want to have sex because you're lonely,
yeah,
but not have that define you,
yes. And
and need that.
yeah. And because half of it, I think, is the judgment that you place on yourself, not even that anybody else said, that you think other people are saying, or if they knew what you were doing, you think that they would say. When in fact, like, yeah, if you want to go on Grinder and have sex with someone because that's going to make you feel better, like, obviously, I want to encourage safety all the time, but there's nothing unsafe about having sex if you're having safe sex, whatever that practice is for you. So, like, go ahead. Like, we're here to experience all these things.
But would you not add that as long as it doesn't, when you've done it and you feel worse after?
Well, that's the thing, because if you feel worse after, then perhaps there's something more to explore about how you're actually feeling about the act of doing this thing, which I have to, like, because we're conditioned by our upbringing, like, that it's a bad thing, that it's sinful, all these words that we were told to believe about just sex in general, and then let alone sex outside of marriage, and let alone sex just for sex, not for reproduction. So, like, we have all this inundated messaging from all these years that does require you to, like, almost like put your foot down for yourself, that, like, no, I did it because I wanted to. Now, does it define who I am? No, but in that moment, that's what I needed. And then it can pass and it can go. And you don't have to, like, scour the internet for sex every single day.
I am a really good sort of case and study about this
Mm-hmm.
because, and I've been doing this. I've been doing this the last couple of weeks. I mean, I do it, most of the time over the umpteen years that I've been on these sites like Grinder and Scruff.
Mm-hmm.
And I go on and I literally, like, sure, I'm horny, I want to have sex, but there's a huge part of it is because I want the connection. I
Yes.
want the affirmation. I want the validation. I want someone. And then, you get it. And people are like, oh, yeah, yeah, sure, let's get it. And nothing ever happens, because they're just, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, that's a whole
Well,
nother.
it's partly convenience, right? Like what you used to have to do is get dressed, go to a bar, go somewhere, meet someone somewhere. So that took a lot more energy sometimes for people to actually do it. Whereas now you're like, had your shower, you're in bed, you're almost going to bed, and then you're like, I'll just check Grinder. And then all of a sudden you're chatting with someone, and then they're like, do you want to come over? And you're like, I don't know if I really want to, or they ghost you, or whatever. There's so many things that can happen, but that's mostly because it's so convenient. It's so easy. You're
I
just like,
know, I know. And that's easy to say coming from someone who is uh well adjusted. I don't know if that's the right word, or has the attitude that, like, yeah, okay, whatever. I know this is just like, if I see him, I see
would,
him. That's not how it is. That's most of the time with me. I get really like, it's like what the fuck?
mm-hmm,
It doesn't make me feel good because I'm doing it not just because I just want to get off. Because if it doesn't, and half the time when it doesn't happen, I just go jerk off.
yeah,
But it still damages my self-worth,
mm-hmm.
you know? So the idea is to get to the point with what you're saying, because I think that's where you're at. But a
It
lot of,
doesn't mean that you still don't have like some disappointment sometimes. Like I think people think that if you figured it out that you then that person doesn't experience some of these emotions. But for me, it's that like I don't really want to be at the mercy of someone else's choice. Because then I just feel like I'm beholden emotionally to their saying yes or no to something. So as much as that's a journey, that's always like in my life now, that's that's what I'm constantly working towards, is that like regardless of what somebody else thinks of me, whoever it is in the world, like that I don't adjust my behavior for them, or that I don't let it like, sure, you can be disappointed and like be like, oh, I really wish that could have happened, but like if it didn't, then like that wasn't supposed to be the one.
yes, and this is my point. But this is what, when we do this, as we're doing now, I want to put it out there to people, like I'm hoping this will be where people will listen to us because they are struggling with the certain things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're at that place. But then I want to say to you, okay, so tell people, how did you get there? Because I'm not there. I mean, I'm probably 50% there. And
Yeah.
I'm a 66-year-old man and I'm still not there because I don't
Yeah.
I don't have the confidence in myself. I don't have I still want to be, validated and blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah, you know.
But
So
I mean, I will say I still enjoy being validated by other people, but I don't feel like if I don't get that validation, that like notches me down a couple notches. Like I just live at this because of how I value myself, for myself, not for someone else, but for myself, which that journey, I mean, that's a long story.
right, but you do.
Like that didn't happen overnight. Like 10 years of life coaching, being in church for like my whole life before. There's so many systems. We could talk about that sometime, like the breaking free of systems, because I feel like these systems create this homogenization that like makes people believe that we're all going to be able to do it the same way, when in fact I don't believe that's why we're here. I believe we're here to differentiate the experiences that we have and then learn from each other while we have those experiences, knowing that like the way it worked for me is not necessarily going to work in the same way for you. But I think people, they want the solution, so they're willing to try sometimes what somebody else has suggested. I think my approach now is much more, this is what I'm doing. This feels good for me. The journey for me right now is just accepting that there will be times when I do something that I still judge myself for it, but I catch myself a lot quicker where I'm like, if you're going to still judge yourself for this, then don't do it. But if you can do it and not judge yourself for it, then you can actually enjoy the fact that you just got a blowjob from some random person and that you don't need to feel bad about that. Like you don't need to go home and be like, oh, I did it again. Because that's what used to be the thought when you would jack off to gay porn when you're 12 and then like feel shame and guilt forever. Like I'm done. I just don't want to feel those emotions anymore. Like because of that. Like there's nothing wrong with what we're doing. But we've said many times, moderation is key in that, like, too much of anything is going to tip a scale in one direction. And
Yeah, and I mean, I also want to sort of get, when we, you know, get back on track to, like you said something that I firmly believe, that people are looking for answers, and not that we're the, you know, the gurus and have all the answers, but we can only say what works for us.
mm-hmm.
And you know, so the bottom line here is how, you know, what we can sort of advise people, and this goes back to the thing about wanting as opposed to needing, and
Yeah.
validation is, and self-worth. So much of this
Mm-hmm.
is self-worth.
Yeah, I
I'm all over the place.
no, I think this is honestly just like this is the conversation. This is like us talking about what what a lot in our community, and not just our community, a lot of people just in the world in general deal with this. To your point about like what why like you couldn't believe he was still capable of this, it's like, to me it comes back to not being beholden to this other person's um standard of living. And it's not even a judgment when I say that, but to think that everybody is going to do it like you're doing it, like with the same integrity or the same honesty, and or whatever it is that you live your life by, that I think like will always disappoint you in
Mhm.
the end, because somebody else will not do it the way you do it, and they will not have the same um motivation to be kind or to be thoughtful, whatever that, because they don't owe you anything, like in from their perspective. But for you it might be that, like, no, I'm not going to treat anybody with disrespect, so I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say what it is I want, or I'm not going to ghost somebody, or if I can't make it, I'll explain why. Like there's just like basic things that you would just do for yourself, whereas again, the convenience of this virtual world is that somebody can just literally turn off their computer, like, bye,
Mhm.
it's over. And you don't get to like you don't really get to say, you don't even get to like state your claim at all, or not claim, like state your case.
There was
And some people's word becomes very like fickle. It's like you could make up any excuse or lie, like, oh my god, my roommate like had a mate like spilt the ketchup, and like that's why I like wasn't checking my phone for an hour, which could literally have happened. But also, how easy is it to just make up that lie, and then somebody's like, you just got cold feet because you're like, oh, I didn't really actually want to talk.
yeah, I know, it's just it's
So
it's challenging when you're having a conversation with somebody, whatever, wherever it is, Grinder, Scruff. I mean, because you have to take that with a grain of salt, Grinder and Scruff, because people are mostly there for sex, but
yeah.
even other ways, and you're having a conversation, and it's like going well, and you think a certain thing, and all of a sudden it's gone. Like that's, you need to be, I think, a pretty confident person to not have that affect you, and this is why I love this, because again, I've said to you so many times, Justin, I want this to be where people can, it's like a reality show, that where
Mm-hmm.
people can relate. And it's like, oh my God, that just happened to me. That keeps happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
People want to hear it from people, from us,
People
like
who are living it.
people who are living it, and people who, like, you're a younger guy, I'm an older guy, like,
Yeah.
like it's someone who they can, like, okay, so I don't know. There's just, to me, there's just so much, to this, and you're in a good place, so you can talk about it from a good place with a good attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I'm probably halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
I
anyway,
would say like
yeah,
whatever getting there is for me now is less about like what other things can I do and more just like what am I feeling and what do I actually want to feel or what not trying to look for like the solution necessarily from someone else but that like what even if somebody's listening right now and this conversation not necessarily like oh Justin did that so I should try that but what does it spark within yourself when you hear this dialogue and this conversation what nuance what um nudges do you even feel within yourself towards something? And I think that's where I'm playing with my own experiment of just like, what do I feel called towards? Not what do I think I should do? What do I actually feel called towards that like may not even have like logic to it? Like right now, you're feeling called towards more yoga. Amazing. Like that's leading you somewhere, but you followed through with that. You felt the like, I feel like that. So I'm gonna do that. Or like I don't really want to bike anymore because I don't really like it. I don't know why I was doing it. Like, it doesn't have to mean more than just like, I'm going to stop biking. I wonder what else will find me. Like, I encourage people to just pay attention to what their actual preferences are and what their body is leading them towards and just experiment with that. It may not always make sense, but I think we live in a world, there's so much data, so much information, so much all this stuff coming at you that you think you need to have like a reason. And honestly, I say this all knowing that for 10 years, I micromanaged and analyzed the shit out of my entire life. And so I can say, as somebody who's done that for literally 10 years, that that was not what made me happy. That was, it was like trying to control my happiness, trying to bottle it up to like keep it. And I'm not saying it's happy all the time to just be more free about it, but I certainly just feel that more free.
yeah. I mean, this goes back to our conversation about appearance, and
Mm-hmm.
so the point I'm going to make is, yeah, these things like you're talking about, do yoga or don't do this or don't do that. The bottom line to me is do what you're going to do, that you want to do, that's going to make you happy,
Yeah.
and don't do the things that are going to make you unhappy.
Yeah.
Now, some people don't know what's going to make them happy, so you need to experiment,
Exactly.
try different things, and
Trial and error.
again, with that, and with all this other stuff we're talking about, another key is, don't be attached to the outcome.
Yes. Because you don't know where
No.
it's going to lead
And
you.
if you are going to be, so if you go on, I keep going back to Scruff and Grinder, but if you are going to go on there and you are attached to that person who you're talking to, and they ghost you, and happen, like, no, so don't do it. If you think you're going to be attached to it, don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's good, you're not
Yeah.
going to feel good.
But I'm also like, if you have to go through these emotions of like the disappointment of feeling the attachment and then being disappointed, like you may need to experience some of these things a couple times in order for you to register that like I don't really like that. And maybe you'll choose differently next time knowing that. But it's again, we're like, no matter what, like at the end of the day, it's always your choice. Always your choice.
And again, I agree with what you said, but how many of us just keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting that same result? So yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead and try it, but then learn from it. Because if you
Yes.
don't learn from it, you're going to keep doing it.
Exactly.
All right, I know you
And
got to.
on that note, thank you so much for listening to our TED Talk. We're so glad you could join us today. We will be back, as you can tell. We're back and we're coming to you weekly. That's the goal, anyways.
And we're going to
Because
talk about
we're just gonna talk about what's really going on. Yeah.
like
So like and subscribe because you've missed us clearly. Um, and like obviously keep it queer because the world needs more because clearly shit just keeps hitting the fan. And
don't.
and our love goes out to everybody affected by these mass shootings that have just happened. um Stay safe, everyone. Like literally check in with all of your friends, and like when you're out, be have fun, but like be aware of what's going on around you, because this is the world we live in right now. So it doesn't mean you should stop, it just means you should be conscious of what's going on and protect each other, stand up for each other, and love each other.
What we talked about just in this last little bit, like there's so much more.
Yeah,
So if you want to hear it,
here it
subscribe.
is.
Here it is. Here we are.